In honor of this historic inauguration, here's a beautiful mosaic of Kamala Harris made out of every prisoner eligible for early release that she tried to keep in overcrowded jails so California could exploit them for cheap labor as firefighters.
Now, that's just not fair, telling the truth like that. Honestly, come on.
She incarcerated, and we've talked about all these things, guys, 3,000 people for low-level drug offences with marijuana. And because marijuana over there is classified as a very high-level drug, like it's up there with like meth and stuff, which is insane. So there are a number of people getting incarcerated over there, and you know, I don't agree with marijuana, but the way that she was prosecuting it, and now she's saying she's for legalization. Now she's saying she's not hard on crime. She's actually always been hard on crime. In fact, the progressives call her Cop Kalama.
Well, it's almost like she's just following orders that have no consistent theme or internal consistency.
Or she's an opportunist. You know, it's hard to say. But I wanted to quickly run through, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on these executive orders, Riccardo, and what the repercussions are for Australia. On day one, as I said, Joe Biden as president, he was trying to rush through 17 executive orders that he signed. I'm surprised he stayed awake for all of them. I'll be honest with you. It was a very long day. Like, honestly, Joe, I said it in Arabic, haram, poor thing. I feel sorry for you. The length of the day, I'm just surprised you made it through it. I honestly mean that.
And he signed them on a desk the same size as his reputation and ability. Have you seen the little desk? He's on the little desk.
Yeah, they always do it like that. So the first executive order that was sort of signed, I think this is chronological, but it doesn't matter. They were all in the same time. It was an executive order requiring that people wear masks and keep their distance from each other on federal property. Now, he broke that half a dozen times within the few hours preceding that. But there is no, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no definitive evidence that masks work or don't work. We actually just don't know. There's no consensus. It doesn't matter what people say.
And there's certainly no scientific evidence that it works.
Exactly. Like, I mean, there's actually studies showing for and against, but it's just not conclusive. And that's a problem if you're going to mandate something like it's the truth and you're going to censor videos like ours, which we'll talk about later. Second executive order, the launch of 100 days masking challenge to encourage Americans to wear masks. Now, notice that's 100 days masking challenge. The reason he said that is because it's unconstitutional to mandate it across all the states. The Supreme Court would strike it down. So it's a 100-day masking day challenge. So it's sort of like
why? So the question is, why would you have an order that says you must wear a mask, but we're also going to have a please wear a mask program?
Yeah.
Now, there are implications for Australia here, but my take on this is quite simple. It's a measure of compliance, because that's one thing they need to know. Because when they know, like in Australia, when the nation is compliant, they can take the next bold step. If the nation is not compliant, they can't take the next bold step because the population's not ready for it. The implications for Australia are this. So that's that measure. How compliant are they? Yep. The same question here, because I received a phone call from a supporter. And let me just quickly dive into these two because they're both important. I'll come with the second one shortly. Anyway, this particular supporter, Anthony, rang me up and said, it works. And I said, what? He said, the mask. I went into this shop and I said, they challenged me and they said it's compulsory to wear a mask. And the signs actually say it on, I think it was Coles. Yeah. It's compulsory to wear a mask, and it's not. It's not compulsory. It's not a law, and we've spoken that it is actually not based in law. It's an illegitimate direction. Yeah. But he said he followed the instructions, which were, I have a medical exemption, and they said, what exemption? I don't have to tell you. That's an invasion of my medical privacy. They said, okay. Now, I wouldn't ask anybody to do what I wouldn't do, because I did the same thing. And a big shout out to the people at Bunnings. Thank you so much. You were brilliant. We went in to get some paint and some light globes and a few things. I love my Bunnings time. It was one of the best shops on the planet. We were confronted halfway through our shop by one of the managers and said, excuse me, you have to wear a mask. Would you like one? It was very courteous. Would you like a mask? I said, no, we have medical exemption. And he said, what exemption? I said, I can't tell you. That's an invasion of medical privacy. And he said, no problem. Can I give you a sticker saying that you are exempt from wearing the mask? And I proudly wore my exemption sticker as I went through Bunnings. Legendary. So there you go, folks. So it's a measure of compliance. Now, implications for Australia. I received another call this morning from another person almost in tears. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? We had a long chat about that for about 40 minutes. And the reason this individual was particularly worried is because she was travelling overseas some 10 years ago, went to the doctor just to get some vitamins, some stuff to make sure she handles the trip well. And the medical professional at the time said, you should get now which one was it? Swine flu. You should get the swine flu virus as a prophylactic, just in case you're exposed. Yeah. The vaccine, not the virus.
Yeah, sure.
The vaccine.
Don't get the virus
swine flu vaccine, well, you get one of the same.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Fact check.
Fact check that. You should get the swine flu vaccine as a prophylactic measure to prevent anything if you're exposed. And so she did. Well, the tale of woe over 10 years, autoimmune disease, narcolepsy, chronic fatigue, inability, and I can't remember the term, executive, there's a problem learning new things, particularly sequential issues. She has difficulty learning for 10 years of misery. Now, she went to the doctors to check out, is it any one of a number of other possible causes, and they came back and said, no, it's the vaccine. Yeah. So she's in tears. She said, what do we do? And I said, first thing is stop wearing masks. And she said, how does that help? Because if Australians wake up and stop wearing the mask, that's a message to the cabal and the treasonous politicians that we're not buying their nonsense. So they'll have to slow down their push for the vaccine. But everyone's wearing the mask. Have you seen it? The take-up is nearly 100%. And this gives them confidence that they can now push the vaccine because people believe it. So if we start taking off our masks, claiming a legitimate medical exemption, and as I said, one of the exemptions is anxiety, and anxiety is when you are dealing, this is the definition, you're dealing with a problem over which you have no control. So who does that cover? Work it out. Once we start taking off the masks, this has been one of those tangible steps to slow the vaccine issue out. And after that, we can start turning up in our millions and telling the politicians we're not buying this stuff anymore. So this is why you look at what they're doing and reverse it. Does that make sense? Absolutely, if you want to know what policies we should proceed with and in what sequence in terms of priority, have a look at what the other side is doing and reverse it. And if one of his first ones, one of the first 17, is compelling people to wear masks, our policy is get the masks off. Yeah. Correct.
Two of them actually.
Two of them.
So the next one is actually the reversal of Trump's decision to remove the US from the World Health Organization.
Well, this same woman, let me just continue.
Go for it.
When she went to the doctor and said, look, I'm traveling overseas, the doctor said, well, the World Health Organization recommends swine flu. No. So there you go. Now, just as a reminder for those who are late to the game, and no criticism, Dr. Tedros, head of the World Health Organization, was the number 3 man in a communist terrorist government running Ethiopia. He was responsible for covering up a cholera outbreak in Egypt. And this is the man that we trust. And even our foreign minister went to the trouble of defending the organisation by saying, oh, well, there might be some problems in the leadership, but by and large, they're telling us good things.
Oh, boy.
Moving right along.
Do not trust the WHO. You can trust them when they say things you like. For example, when they first came out and said lockdowns are good, now they're saying they're bad, it should be a last resort. I trust them. I trust them on that. Okay.
Well, if they're for the WHO, we're against it. Moving right along.
An executive order that creates the position of COVID-19 response coordinator and restores the Directorate for Global Health Security and Biodefense, a team in charge of pandemic response with the National Security Council. That's not much. Mike Pence was in charge of a similar thing before. It's just basically the COVID-19 task force. Nothing to see there. Calls to Congress to extend COVID-19 aid and requests to various departments to extend eviction and foreclosure moratoriums and pause payments for federal loans. So that's basically expansion of the debt, national debt. They want, I think it's $1,400 to go out to all Americans again, payments. And it's basically making sure people don't get kicked out. So, and this is the funny thing. They created the problem with the lockdowns, and then they're selling you the solution, and they're keeping the profits. This is what we're seeing, guys, and it's in real time. But I think that one's self-explanatory. This is one I want to get your word on.